Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I've got an unboxing day for you guys today. A couple of small packages, a sponsor, and some helpful viewers of the show, helping to complete my own personal collection today. But let's start with, I would say, the coolest guitar that we'll see in this episode. So this was one of those guitars that I just wanted because it might have one part that I'm looking for one of my other personal collection guitars. Like, sometimes this is the best way to source original parts. Just buy a different player's grade model that has the part you're looking for instead of waiting for somebody to just decide to sell theirs online. Because some parts like knobs and switch tips or poker chips, nobody ever lists them, or when they do list them, they don't tell you, oh, this is a 70s, 80s era one. Same thing goes with cases. Sometimes you just have to do generic searches like 80s Gibson case, or just straight up Gibson case and sort through to see if you can find it. Because not everybody knows what they're selling. So for this guitar, I purchased it strictly for the knobs, but I asked the seller to send me photos of them because he was claiming the guitar was all original. And when I looked at the photos that he sent me, it didn't look like the original knobs, but I decided to go ahead and buy it anyways because this thing was nice. So we've got a makeshift handle. Like, okay, so they've taken some wire and they've wrapped it around there, and then they had some foam padding taped over top of that. It's inventive, it works. That's why I save old cords from like electronics that don't work. I just cut their power cord off. It's a great way to put a makeshift handle on your case that'll be strong and secure. But let's go ahead and see what kind of a beauty I found today. Nice. Okay, so natural Les Paul Deluxes are fantastic guitars, because if you look at the shipping ledgers and the numbers that they put on them, now granted, those aren't exactly the 100% official numbers, but it's the best that we've got. There were very few deluxes made in this natural finish, and this thing is just beautiful and clean. Like, the wood grain, it's okay. It comes to life. I had one of these deluxe a while ago. Back when I was talking on like internet forums to learn about guitars and whatnot. Now I just learned firsthand. I had one of these that had been like modified and whatnot. I think I sold it for $1,300 back then. But this thing, wow, ridiculously clean, and you can see beautiful Norland era quality control. So the Les Paul model silkscreen got doubled up on this one. You can kind of see what I'm talking about right there. It's like it got put on twice, which does happen occasionally. That is not the first time I've seen that, but man, this thing is very clean. 1977, so that's the first year that they switched over to this style of serial number, and a pretty early one yet too. Man, the condition is phenomenal. Like, he said it was going to be clean, right? Like, we've got the usual lacquer checking in certain areas and, like, the fretboard binding that gets the small cracks. It's the same thing as fret sprout. You're going to find that on pretty much any Gibson. But there are a few rare ones that didn't get that. But now, looking at the knobs, yeah, they look right to me, but it's just strange because they're so clean. So as I was telling you earlier, I'm trying to find original knobs for my Sparkle Top Deluxe because this is way more rare than this guitar, Kalamazoo build versus Nashville build. But these, they're just too clean. They don't have that look I'm looking for. So I think I will just leave that alone and just keep hoping that somebody will list some of those knobs that are a little bit more aged. Like, this thing is by no means like heavily aged or anything like that. I mean, it's in very similar condition as that other one that we're just looking at here today. But, I don't know, the lacquer's aged a bit more. Like, you can see a little bit of a patina. But as with any vintage purchase, make sure when you get it, you check the truss rod. Make sure everything's good there. Make sure your neck is straight. But I always ask them, and I believe this guy sent me a photo. Perfect. Everything's looking good on that. Yeah, that's looking nice and straight. Might need a small, slight truss rod adjustment. But man, this thing's beautiful. Like, the condition is unheard of, especially for a natural one. Normally they get all chewed up. This thing, yeah, if you're looking for a maple neck era Les Paul Deluxe, this is a winner. Continuing on our journey today, we have a sponsor, Donner. You can check them out at donnerdeal.com. They sell guitars that we've been reviewing these past couple of months. They do pianos, they do cellos, they do a whole bunch of stuff. Just check them out. They're usually pretty fairly priced. But for today's sponsored segment, we can take a look at their guitar neck rest. Now, I'm a big believer in guitar neck rests. I don't care if you buy theirs or you buy anybody else's. If you are a guitar player, you need some sort of a neck rest. So theirs is like a cork material. Imagine a giant bottle of wine stopped with this. I mean, that is the exact feel of this. So I think in theory, that should be safe for pretty much all finishes. But what these neck rests are good for are working on your guitars, because if you have an angled back headstock like a Les Paul, it's really not good to have the headstock touch down. I mean, it's not going to kill the guitar, but listen. It does bend the neck a little bit, and you can hear that with the strings changing. So it's better to do this. That way it's supported off there, it's easier to work on, the neck is level. But it's not just for working on your guitar. Don't forget this when you're taking photos of guitars too. You want that top to be slightly angled up because then it catches the light just right. So if you want one of these Donner neck rests, right here, you can look it up on their website, and you can always use my discount codes. Just check out the links in the description. All right, thank you, Donner, for sponsoring today's episode. Let's get back to the unboxing. All right, do we go guitar? Do we go stories? I choose stories. So this thing showed up on Reverb, and it was an okay price. It wasn't a part that I necessarily needed, but I'm sure somebody out there needs this, and somebody just didn't want it. So let's get this open to show you what I'm talking about. This is a wiring harness for a melody maker. So you might be curious, is this like a 50s, 60s melody maker? No. The secret that I'll tell you it's not is right here. You see the Gibson embossing? That tells you this is actually one of the 70s reissue melody makers. So the kind of interesting story behind this one is the guy decided to take this out of his original, and he bought the original because of my review and demo of the 70s model. So you can check those out here if you haven't seen them before. They are not like any other melody makers. They feel like a more professional guitar, mainly because they have a wider neck width. But he didn't like the original pickups, so he decided he was just going to rip this whole thing out because he actually has a knockoff one of these, labeled Conquistador. So the binding's all falling apart from it. It's not the best guitar as far as the guitar goes, but apparently the pickups raise heads. So he thought he was just going to swap that into his Gibson one and sell this off to, just make some more money. He'll never use it. So I saw it. I was like, sure, I'll buy it. I don't know if I'll ever use it. I'll probably just end up selling it to somebody who sees it and does need it. But what I do know is people are always looking for these witch hat knobs. I mean, they're not exactly what was used on the Les Paul Customs because they don't have the gold toppers, but it really just depends on what you're trying to do. But people are always looking for these age switch tips and, having the whole pick guard and wiring assembly. I bought it because I saw it. Sometimes you just have to do that because when you need it, you're not going to be able to find it again. Next up here, we have the back end of a tail of a guitar that we reviewed that I decided to keep for my personal collection. So if I ever find a guitar that I think is just too nice to sell, or, I'm emotionally attached to it for some reason, I'll end up keeping it. I'll still post it on my website at like a price that I could be convinced to sell it at. Now, I'm sorry, some guys get offended at that. However, if I don't do that, I get countless emails of people asking me how much do I want for the guitar. And with me, everything is for sale at the right price. So, what did I get in here? Yeah. Well, that's a little bit unfortunate. They didn't tell me the lock wasn't functioning properly. So the story behind this case was it's new old stock, but it just never got sold because they couldn't find out the combinations. But yeah, they must have tried prying this open. I'm gonna have to talk to them about that because I paid a premium for this case because it's supposed to fit my Gibson US1. And as you know, the US1 that I just reviewed not too long ago didn't have the original case. So this could use some TLC. Somebody cut out this. That's easy enough to put back in with some hot glue. The moment of truth, because he wasn't sure. It looked like my last one. Yeah, that works. It's not the tightest fit in the world, but Much better than not having a Gibson case, the headstock's not touching down or anything like that. Having the case shroud's just kind of nice. This is a very late 80s case, so that'll do okay. But that leads us into this one too. So, you guys remember, this middle pickup is a bit wonky. Like, it's just gotten too old. Like, it might need rewound or something. And surprisingly, I had not one, but two people be like, hey, I've got some of those in my parts drawer if you want one. So I picked up this one. I mean, he had, I think, 4 of these. He took it out of a Project US one, if I remember it correctly. And out of the set, I thought this one matched the closest. Like, maybe it's a little bit dirtier than the rest, but it looks like it's got the right lead length. It was about the right reading. So if I can't figure out how to fix that, it's great to know that I can put this in now. So this guitar is now complete. It's a beautiful collector's US one. I'm happy with it. Like, this top is just gorgeous. I love how it's so scaly, especially when you get it in the light. You can actually see the lacquer kind of sinks into the wood grain. Kind of hard to show what I'm talking about, but you can kind of see it right there. It's a really cool, like, lizard scale-like effect. This is just such a fantastic example. That's why I priced it at $5,000. But now that I have the case and the pickups are working, I don't want to sell this thing. It's just too nice. So maybe in the future, when I need some additional content, I will just, you know, make an episode where we swap the pickup out, see how it actually is supposed to sound. So I will store that in the case. Thank you so much for sending that to me. I will get that done eventually when I have some more time. But some additional stories on the US one. You guys remember how I was saying the internal shafts were cracked on the pot? That is true on this one. But on this one, Randy Leonard, remember the guy who used to work at Gibson during this time period? He remembers these cheap pots that they were putting in here, they had a larger shaft, so he had to hand drill every single one of these things out. So that little circle right there that you're seeing, that's because somebody took a regular Gibson one and reamed it out in order to, you know, make it actually fit. But it doesn't fit very good. Maybe it fit better back then, but as it aged, it just didn't work. But it's nice to confirm that these push-push pots were in fact garbage from the beginning. Because they always break. And I have one last story to share with you guys today. I know I said I wouldn't show you another one of these in the unboxing series, but technically this is the same one. You're going to recognize my famous Fragile tape here. This is the Slim Harpo that I had to send back to the dealer. They were apologetic about the whole situation. So no harm, no foul there, in my opinion. This is the Slim Harpo that had the output jack that didn't work. And that's right, this was a brand new guitar that the output jack was dead on. Like, I don't know how that happens. I really don't. Because they told me, yes, indeed, the output jack was just straight up bad. It wasn't a bad wiring connection or anything. Just the jack itself was messed up. So I'm hoping and praying this does not have any type of headstock break or any additional scratches or anything, because this is the nicest Slim Harpo I've had, because it's got the flame figuring in the back, which none of my other ones have. Like, it's not crazy, but it's there and it's nice. Looks like our headstock survived the multi shipments to get it here. And it's looking just as good as ever. So maybe there are a few light scratches here now. That's a bit of a bummer, but it's an out-of-production model that's raised in value. Who's really going to cry here? So I guess to end out this episode, we should make sure it works. All right, here is the moment of truth. Does this thing work now? I mean, can we really blame them for putting a couple of scratches? Do you realize what they had to go through to replace that jack? They probably had to take everything out and then tighten it back up. I mean, there are no back plates on this thing. Very cool. Still out of phase. That's just how this one is, and many of them were, apparently. Alright, troglodytes, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.